Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, I'm a mom and Tanya after dark.
No, maybe you are, but you shouldn't be.
Yeah. What the
You shouldn't be.
hell?
Who just sent me a thumbs up? Oh yeah, I gotta learn how to use moderators because you and Tristan should moderate later. Just sitting here, just waiting. Sitting here, just waiting. Sitting here, just waiting. And then I guess like after 5 minutes there, letting people know if people come into that, folks jumped into that.
Mm-hmm.
So like if y'all are here and y'all are ready for book club, we supposed to do book club yesterday, but I was dealing with chickens. I was still dealing with chickens today. You see, I'm looking like Farmer Mama Tanya. Um, yeah. So we are going live from moving forward. The book club is going to be on YouTube. So you can find me on YouTube at the Hood Homesteader. Taylor will put that in the chat. So if you go find me on the Hood Homesteader, then that is where the book club is happening. So as folks come into the meeting, I would love for y'all just to throw your name up in the chat. Let me know who's in here. That'd be dope. Cause this is still a learning curve for me. I do not know. It says that there's one person here. I don't know who that person is. It's not like the platforms that I'm used to where I can see who's coming in. So it'd be great if you would just introduce yourself in the chat, where you at in the world, if you're comfortable with that, if you have preferred pronouns, so that if I do address you, I'm addressing you in a way that you feel comfortable with, that respects your personhood. That would be amazing. Again, the book that we are uh, um, that we are exploring is Let This Radicalize You by Kelly Hayes and Miriam Kaba. Hey, Jennifer. Hey, girl. North Carolina from the South. Ow. The dirty, dirty South. I just came from Mississippi. I was in Mississippi this weekend for a Black Farmers Alliance I'm a part of. We had our annual retreat, and that was amazing. It was really good. And so, yeah. Jennifer, do you have the book already? It's not needed or necessary because I read through the excerpts, thinking about being inclusive, thinking about folks's where folks might be at, what they have accessibility to. We want to make this super inclusive, super accessible. So if you don't have the book, that's okay. Don't worry about it. But people who become Patreons on Patreon, I will be sending the first 10 people who become patrons books. And I plan on doing that either the end of this week. I'm definitely going to have to do the end of this week because Sunday I'm going to Mexico. So I got to do it this week. Yes, I bought a copy. This is new work for me. Okay, Jennifer. Where are you? Have you started already? Are you like are you further along in it? It would be good to know. Who's in that chat on Instagram?
There's like one person. A couple people have jumped on.
Okay. So just again, I'm giving like a 5-minute grace period. Right now, I've been live for 4 minutes. Jennifer, don't worry. If it's just me and you, we're gonna go through it. It'll just be me and you. I was trying to see if there was a way I could invite you. It says start a question, a Q&A. But I was trying to see if there was a way that I can invite you so that if it is just me and you will talk and we can have FaceTime. We don't, I see somebody else has jumped in. If you are just coming in, we're going to get started in like 15 seconds, 20 seconds. Please just tell me who you are, how you'd like to be known, your preferred gender pronouns. If you want to tell me the location of where you are in the world, that would be great. This Yeah, I hate when it gets sticky in the corners and it look like you foaming at the mouth and frothing at the mouth. That's nasty. No, it's given like it's
That makes
given,
me
yeah, it's given rabies. That's what I'm about to say. Like, girl, it's given rabies. All right, who else is in here? Okay, well, the person who was here has logged out. So Jennifer, let's get ready. So we are now actually the part that we left off was it's not just about facts on page 20. So if you want to grab your book, open up to page 20, let's do it. For anybody coming into the room for the book club, Let This Radicalize You by Kelly Hayes and Miriam Kaba. Please just introduce yourself in the chat. We're gonna get ready to get started because it's 7:43. This will start at 7:30, so we are 13 minutes behind, and it is late at night. I'm still in the office, so yes, let's do this. Hey, Owl Help. Good day. Good day. Okay. So, Owl, just let me know how you want to be known, preferred gender pronouns if you got them. Where are you in the world? Do you have a book? You don't have to have a book. Are you a Patreon? Are you a patron on Patreon? You don't have to be. But for those who do become patrons, at the end of this week, I will be sending out copies of the books to folks so that they don't have to wait for the book club. They can go at their own at their at their own rate. Yes. What?
should we close out and have people go over to YouTube?
Yes. So people should go to YouTube, find me on the Hood Homesteader, and then you can go live on the Black Feminist Project just so that people over there also know, because we were supposed to do this yesterday, but I was with the chickens. I was with the chickens again today. If you go to my Instagram, you will see that my last post was me and them damn chickens. Y'all, I had them in the podcasting studio because by the time I came from upstate with those 25 birds, it was dark. It was like 8 o'clock. I was not going to be in a dark space in the Bronx at 8 o'clock at night. So yeah, I brought them to the center. I put cardboard down in the podcasting studio and I put them in the podcasting studio. When I tell y'all it was funky in here, when I tell y'all it was, when I tell y'all it stank like 1,000 pounds of bounce that ass, it was a mess. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I think we just aired the space out. It was so funky. We have chicken feathers everywhere. I did get them over to the coop at the farm. I've been shitted on more times than I'm comfortable with. And I'm saying that as a mom of 6, someone who has raised 6 infants. I think I was shitted on more by those damn I said owls, Lord have mercy. Those damn chickens than I've been by any of my children. Okay, so we are on page 20 of Let This Radicalize Us. It's not just facts. Where do we begin? As we attempt to mobilize people around a major issue, often we assume our jumping off point should be facts and fear. This is understandable. From the climate crisis to the COVID-19 pandemic to the horrors of the prison industrial complex, organizers often raise the alarm about present or future catastrophes. Our work is usually informed by a daunting awareness of the crisis we face. Becoming well-versed or even immersed in the realities of these crises is crucial, but can sometimes lead to a near constant state of alarm. Since we did not always have this knowledge and now feel motivated by it, it's easy to assume that if others knew how bad things were, they too would want to take action. This assumption can sometimes lead activists to become walking, talking encyclopedias of doom. However, as organizers, our job is to help move people to action, and no fact is so shocking or profound that its utterance will spontaneously spark a movement. Our work is full of truths that should be unthinkable, yet the mere reaction, the mere recitation, yet the mere recitation of these facts does not move people into the streets or lead them to join movements. Indeed, in some cases, it prompts people to turn off the television. In 2018, Chris Hayes, host of MSNBC's All In with Chris, I was on that show, by the way. Just want to let y'all know that I was on All In with Chris back in, I don't know, was it maybe it was 2013 or 2014. I was on that show. I'll have to find an excerpt of that. Anyways, in 2018, Chris Hayes, host of MSNBC's All In with Chris, tweeted, "Every single time we've covered climate change, it's been a palpable ratings killer. This does not absolve the media of moral responsibility by any means, as they have a duty to inform the public about these threats, but it is useful information for us as organizers. Fear alone doesn't usually hold people's attention, let alone inspire them to action. Similarly, social media bombards us with flashes of tragedy and injustice throughout our waking hours, but most of these stories do not widely reconfigure worldviews or provoke new action. They often prompt people to retweet and move on." So I want to stop there for a second, because I think for me, as someone who has a history of organizing, who leads an organization, who is very much in the streets, who uses their social media as a platform to inform people, I guess I kind of knew it, but seeing a more seasoned elder organizer, activist, change maker write this, right? I guess in some ways was sort of validating, but then it also brought up like some real feelings for me. So I would really love, like, if y'all throw in the chat, like, what does this bring up for you when you read this, right? That the mere recitation of facts of how bad something is, becoming the encyclopedia of doom. Even if people can see how bad it is, it doesn't move them to change. I'm just wondering what that brings up for you when you read something like that, when you internalize something like that. And I'm wondering what that brings up for you, particularly in this political climate. And I'm not, in this moment, I'm not about to preach any specific political ideology or leaning, right? What your political ideology belongs to you in this moment. But I'm wondering, one cannot deny that we are living in a very charged, a very politically charged environment in this moment. And so what does something like that, however you internalize where the urgency is in this political climate, when you hear things like people can actually know just how bad something is and it still does not move them to action, I am wondering what that brings up for you. As organizers, we're repeatedly disappointed by others' lack of response to urgent crisis. In cases like these, it's tempting to impose moral binaries, to deem people good or bad based on whether the facts move them to act. An activist who informs someone of the severity of the climate crisis and is met with complacency or fatalism, for example, might assume the person does not care about the natural world or other people. If someone is unmoved by the facts, we must conclude we simply don't share the same values. But things are rarely this simple. Our personal realities are patchworks of things we've seen, been exposed to, and potentially come to understand, bound together by belief. Our interpretation of the information and stimuli we are given is the product of many influences. Remove any of those influences or add another, and one's worldview may change drastically, or it may not. We interpret new information on the basis of how it compares to what we have already seen, experienced, or contemplated. For many, new and conflicting information is simply measured against experience, their current worldview, and input from influential sources. If the information does not fit their sense of reality, people will often let it go or even forcefully reject it. It can be easy to deem people who reject crucial facts as bad people. Some may indeed be doing terrible things, but many are just laboring through life, making sense of it as best they can. We have to strive to receive people on these terms. When a fact or set of facts prompts people to change course, it's usually because someone or something has interrupted the narrative they knew and told a story that feels more true, one worth making changes over. During the Reparations Now campaign, participants actively worked against sensationalizing the horrors torture victims endured. While traumatic details were part of the campaign's storytelling, those details were handled respectfully and presented in the context of transformative demands and a different vision of the future. Rather than simply asking people to absorb terrible facts, organizers were inviting people to imagine the reparations ordinance as a step toward a world without the violence it sought to address and to fight for that world. When these narrative shifts occurred among communities and groups of people, new potentials arise. People are capable of taking actions that defy systems of oppression and popular expectations. So again, I want to stop there. And if you are on the Black Feminist Project Live right now, then we are actually having our book club meeting over on YouTube. You can find me on YouTube as the Hood Homesteader. I will not be doing my book clubs in its entirety on Facebook or Instagram anymore. We're going to be doing them on YouTube. So please, we're getting ready to end that live. I would encourage you to join us here if this is something that you want to discuss. So I got 3 people here in the chat. Thank y'all. This feels like a very quaint, full class, but it's not just me reading to y'all, right? I'm not doing like a live Kindle session. It's about us discussing these things. I'm telling you that as I read this chapter, I struggled with it a bit, but I'm really curious about how y'all are internalizing this idea that the reality is that just because somebody knows, let's think about this. There is, can we go live one more time on our personal account? We know, I'm saying again. So we know what is happening, right, in Gaza. We know what is happening in occupied Palestine, right? We are seeing it live on our screens. Actual children being harmed. And many of us, maybe we'll put a sad emoji, maybe we'll just keep scrolling. We understand what is happening right now in our country with people's rights being rolled back. Folks who are literally legal residents being detained for days, weeks on end, threatened with deportation. That people who are actual citizens who fit the profile of folks who might be immigrants are being stopped and profiled. We are watching things that folks have spent literal decades building up as a response to inequity being dismantled in real time. And many of us are not acting beyond best case scenario, an emoji online, or just continuing to scroll or go about our day as it exists. For those of us, if you're here in this book club, this probably is not you. You're probably not a person who's like, I know what's happening. You might be here as a response to feeling like you need to do something. Maybe you need to be in community with other people. Maybe you are looking for language to interpret or analyze what is happening around you. So when you hear this, right, as a sociological fact, that facts alone do not get people to move. It does not drive, it does not catalyze us to change. Does it give you any clarity for why we are not seeing on a daily basis people in the street, housing strikes, rent strikes, labor strikes? Like, how do you feel just sort of internalizing those 2 pages, that knowing just how bad something is, being able to view it, knowing it as fact is not enough to move most lay people to any kind of action? I'm going to go to page 22. But to ready people for such moments, we must do more than raise the alarm about injustice. Telling stories, sharing visions. When we were writing this book, our friend Ruth Wilson Gilmore told us a story about facts. engagement, and action. Gilmore was invited to speak to a large group of students at Berkeley High School in Berkeley, California, which Gilmore describes as one of the most segregated places on earth. Affluent white students at Berkeley High School often have bright futures, Gilmore told us, and are prepared to attend colleges like Yale, Cornell, and UC Berkeley, while Black, brown, and poor white students are largely subjected to what Gilmore calls organized abandonment. If you are on the live right now, we were supposed to have our book club yesterday, but because I was out there tussling with these motherfucking hoe-ass chickens, it didn't happen. So we rescheduled. We did a makeup class today. So if you are interested in joining the book club, you do not have to have the book. I am literally reading it as we go along. And then there are questions that I post on my Patreon, and I will put that in the chat of our YouTube live. You can come over here and join us. You don't need the book. We're inclusive. We're breaking barriers, right? Okay. Gilmore told us, when Gilmore entered the auditorium, she met with a large crowd of Black and brown students, along with some likely impoverished white students. Looking back, Gilmore says, I should have realized how reluctant they were to be in the room. Gilmore was introduced to the students by the white high school teacher who had organized the event. All right, let's clock this teacher out. The teacher opened with the words, 1 in 3 Black men will go to prison. This statistic did not incite a sense of shared outrage or solidarity among the students, as the teacher had likely hoped, but seemed to deflate the crowd. Hey, if you are joining us, please put your name, your preferred gender pronoun. If you want to share where you are in the world, we would love to know that as well. And y'all, as I'm reading this, as things come to your mind, please feel free to type them in the chat. This is meant to grow into a space that is not just about reading a book and analyzing it, but a space where we are coming to engage, where we are questioning and inquisitive, where we are challenging, where we are sharing concerns, where we may even support each other, right? If we are feeling isolated, right, in the ways that we are viewing the world around us, and we are looking for places, right, to bounce that off of, that can provide some refuge and some support, this is the place that we are building. Awesome. All right. I love it. So welcome, Riri. And you are in my hometown. Well, not my hometown. My hometown is Harlem, but I've lived a very long time in the Bronx, and that is home. All right. So this white man has opened up this assembly by telling these children who are poor, who are impoverished, who are facing their own challenges. He opens this assembly by saying 1 in 3 Black men will end up in prison. So, how many folks are there? Okay, did you put that we're in? Okay, great. So we're gonna, if you would like to continue to be a part of this, I encourage the 6 of you that are on the Instagram to go over to YouTube, look up The Hood Homesteader, and I am currently live. And while you are there, subscribe so that you do not miss any posts and any updates as they happen in real time. So I sat there and watched all these kids lose whatever strength, confidence, and hope they had, Gilmore told us. And they just kind of folded into themselves, and clearly, without even talking to each other, and there were no smartphones then, made the determination to endure this and get back to their lives. This was not one thing we could say that was going, there was not one thing that we could say that was going to interest them. The young people Gilmore encountered did not need another voice shouting about how bleak their futures were. They had no interest in a conversation that began on such terms. Of course, any meaningful conversation about prisons would have to acknowledge what those young people were up against. But opening with talk of their inevitable doom simply caused them to shut down. Do we see what connections are being made here, right? So in the beginning, in the first 2 pages, it's kind of like, for me, it was like, hell yeah. People know the facts and they don't say anything. People know the facts and they not move. It's easy for us to to look at that and think, because folks are lazy, because folks don't have a political analysis, because folks don't care about anything beyond themselves. But here in this anecdote, right, very much so, she is teaching us a lesson by telling us a story. She is saying to us that the way we tell these stories, the way that we choose to disseminate the facts matter, that many of us already are living in conditions that feel insurmountable or bleak. And so when they are confronted with the continuation of that, even if it's outside the realm of their current network, it creates a response in them that might lock them up, that might freeze them up. It feels like for these young people, this felt like just another day of being a disenfranchised Black, brown, or poor white child. So a reminder that says, hey, and by the way, you're actually also going to end up in jail. Turn to your neighbor, and that person's probably going to be in jail a couple years from now. Yeah, I could understand why that would be difficult. Taylor, Tristan, before you leave, can somebody bring me a cup with ice in it? Okay. Decades later, Gilmore still thinks about how that event should have begun. She says that if she had to do it over again, I would have asked them questions about their lives and why they thought their teachers thought they should listen to the people presenting the assembly. I would have asked them why I should want them to trust me. And I told a story about not trusting myself, not, I hope, some I used to be young too story, and then tried to get people enthusiastic about challenging the situation that brought us all together. The kind of engagement Gilmore describes is key to creating a sustainable flow of communication, education, and potential inspiration. And I want to stop here real quick. Hey Anoy, thank you for joining us. And Melissa, hey boo. So I want to stop here to say this. Some of you may be like, I am not an organizer, so this is not useful to me. And I would invite you, thank you. I would invite you to rethink that. I would actually invite you to think about yourself as an organizer in the networks and the world that you exist. You are an organizer at church. You are an organizer of your nuclear family. You are an organizer of your extended family. You are an organizer of the people at work. And if you deeply desire for these people to not only understand what is happening in the world, but to join you in some sort of either thought process or potentially seeking ways of moving towards some action, right? Or even just rethinking some of the ways in which they view the world. What we are talking about is useful. What we are talking about is useful. So don't think to yourself, I don't work for an organization. I'm not an organizer. I have no interest of being out in the street. This could be just about, how do I get my uncle that I love deeply to stop being transphobic? This might be, how do I get my pastor, who I really fuck with, to take a different position on anti-immigrant legislation, and at this point, abduction of human bodies. This may be about getting your sister, who you adore but makes you cringe in the ways that she talks about people who have been incarcerated. So there's something very useful in here, even if you don't see yourself as a organizer by trade. Okay. Bye, baby. See you later.
See you tomorrow.
Bye.
We're coming to the farm tomorrow.
I'll call you and tell you about it.
Okay.
I'm still at work, y'all. And I'm about to have me a little pop. I generally don't drink sweet carbonated things, but every once in a while, life is worth living. And I really like these because they're made with, actually, it's carbonated like a soda, like a pop, but it's made with fruit juice. So it's a little bit of a healthier alternative, and there's no added sugar, but it's sweet because they're using fruit juice. Anyways, so let's keep going. And talk to each other in this chat. In this chat, talk to each other, please. Like, yes, listen, let's talk about the text, but also talk to each other, right? This can be a place where you have a container to introduce something that's, yes, that's, you have your keys? Taylor. Okay, so lock the door. Because I'm sitting up here by myself in the center alone. Good job. Oh, it's good. All right. The kind of engagement Gilmore describes as key to creating a sustainable flow of communication, education, and potential inspiration. Everything is a story, and people need to understand themselves as having a meaningful role within the story you, as an organizer, are telling. If their role in your story feels like doom appreciator, most people will recoil, retreat to their own smaller story, and keep the focus there. This is not to say that we should not dramatize the size or severity of this system's death making. Given the state of the natural world and the existential threat this system poses to most life on Earth, it makes sense that some protests visually dramatize the global catastrophes of climate change, for example. Such imagery can be heart-rending, heart-ending, and devastating. But not every action, speech, or conversation about climate change should be an apocalyptic snapshot. For the same reason that not every protest against police brutality should be a die-in. Death and devastation are only one part of the story organizers are trying to tell. They are the central part of that story, and people should be moved to appreciate the stakes. But appreciating the stakes is not enough. If spitting horrifying facts at people changed minds and built movements, we would have overthrown the capitalist system long ago, because the facts have always been on our side. To move past the expectation that facts alone will transform people's politics, we have to sit with our discomfort that oftentimes people know. When it comes to many of the issues around which we're organizing, most people are aware of the problem, even if they are not acquainted with all the horrid particulars. In fact, some might be quite familiar with the problem and still choose not to act. Occasionally, you may encounter a situation where the public has virtually no awareness of the issue, such as corporate cover-up of a toxic chemical leak or an emerging pandemic. But in many cases, people have heard the facts before, or at least know how to access them. Consider that nowadays, in spite of the mainstream media's failings, there is a profusion of sources of facts out there. While some information is withheld from the public, on most topics there is no shortage of journalistic reports, academic and scientific studies, government reports, viral videos, or anecdotal testimony that should shock and alarm the public. And millions upon millions of people voraciously consume this information daily. Why don't more people act? Some people believe the problems are insurmountable, or they may believe that most people are too selfish or lousy at working together to do anything about them. Others conclude some problems are unfortunate but necessary evils. For example, when confronted with facts about prison conditions, people will often respond that people wind up in prison for a reason. We have encountered similar attitudes around the treatment of unhoused people and people who use substances. While many people will acknowledge that conditions are not ideal, they also often believe that certain people bring negative experiences upon themselves. These beliefs did not emerge organically, as the powerful have always generated stories that excuse their own violence. Beliefs about the inferiority of Black and Native people, for example, did not precede chattel slavery and colonial genocide, but emerged to justify violence that was already in motion. These assumptions create not only justifications for violence, but also a basis for cooperating with violence. Let me read that back to y'all, because this is a powerful sentence. because that in and of itself could be a chapter that we go off and write together about the complicity when faced with and experiencing the violence. So I want to read it to you one more time. These assumptions create not only justifications for violence, but also a basis for cooperating with violence. And so I would like for us to pause here and in the chat, I would like to spend maybe 5 minutes reflecting on that sentence. I want for you to think about the ways that we in our daily lives, and I don't mean we individually, but we could get hyper individualistic about the we if you want to dig that deep, if you feel like that's a level of vulnerability that you'd like to get to. But I'm saying we collectively as a citizenry, as the peasants, as the proletariat, as the regular niggas, as the motherfuckers who ain't got nothing. How do we cooperate with violence? Let's list some ways that we cooperate with violence. These assumptions create not only justifications for violence, but also a basis for cooperating with violence. But also a basis for cooperating with violence. What are some of the ways that we, as the people who also are experiencing the violence, how are we cooperating with violence? Riri says, silence is cooperation. We agree, we disagree, we want to throw something else out there. How are we cooperating with violence? Subtlety. A lot of the funny videos online that go viral that feed into stereotypes and division. Yes, yes. The normalization of the violence. The normalization of the violence. The ways that it's like, okay, we can make videos about fat bodies and the ways that fat bodies should be commented on, disrespected, picked apart, scrutinized, assumptions about the health of the person who embodies the fat body, how and where we spend money. Tell me more about that. Annoy. What do you mean when you say how and where we spend money? How is that a cooperation with the violence? I'm interested in sort of like what because I don't want to misunderstand you. 2 more minutes, y'all. 2 more minutes. I want y'all to sit with that line. These assumptions create not only justifications for violence, but also a basis for cooperating with violence. A lot of videos are made to rage bait. In marketing, they know outrage gets more engagement. The comments just turn into so much violence and perpetuation of anger, but with zero solution. Yes. Yep. And for as much as we like to say that the internet is not a real place, I agree. And the internet has real world. The internet has real world impacts. What we are consuming online, the dialogue and the rhetoric, the things that become part of certain cultural lexicons, they have real impact on how you see the world, how you show up in the world, how you treat people out in the world. So I think that's a great point, Melissa. Yes, people have become more hateful in real life. I agree. I believe that that is the impact. Corporations are often tied to, linked to with privatized prisons, slave labor. Absolutely. Absolutely. And not just privatized prisons, baby. Not just privatized prisons. That's the gag, honey. That's the gag. Corporations are often tied and linked with public prisons and the slave labor that goes into that. Let's keep going. That was great. Look at y'all. Come on, class. All right, class. Look at y'all talking. We talking, we analyzing, we trading back and forth. This is good because y'all are also teaching me. You are also informing me in the work that I am doing. Absolutely. So, these assumptions create not only justifications for violence, but are also a basis for cooperating with violence. Until those assumptions are undermined or dismantled, facts alone will not motivate a person whose inaction is buttressed by them. What works when facts fail? Over the course of our movement work, we have learned that people understand the world in stories. This means organizers must be effective storytellers. We are not suggesting that you should withhold information, but it's important to understand how we convey that information is central to our success. If y'all are ready, you've got a pen and a piece of paper, or if you want to open up the notes on your phone, because I'm about to give you some attributions, okay? Here's some opportunities for note taking if you want to dig a little bit deeper. For those of us where scholarship makes our pussies wet, okay? If scholarship is your thing, if scholarship is your jam, if scholarship gets you all hot and bothered, you know what I'm saying? Get ready. I'm about to give you an attribution, okay? As Patrick Rinesborough and Doyle Cannon write in Reimagining Change, narrative power analysis starts with the recognition that the currency of story is not necessarily truth, but rather meaning. I'm gonna read that one more time because there's a lot of words. As Patrick Rinesborough and Doyle Cannon write in Imagining Change, narrative power analysis starts with the recognition that the currency of story is not necessarily truth, but rather meaning. In other words, we often believe in a story not necessarily because it is factually true. We accept a story as true because it connects with our values or is relevant to our experiences in a way that is compelling. Again, I want for us to stop. I want for us to stop and internalize this. I'm going to read it one more time and I'm going to pose a prompt for you that, again, I want for us to get into. As Patrick Rinesborough and Doyle Cannon write in Reimagining Change, narrative power analysis starts with the recognition that the currency of story is not necessarily truth, but rather meaning. In other words, we often believe in a story not necessarily because it is factually true. We accept a story as true because it connects with our values or is relevant to our experiences in a way that is compelling. Can you think of some examples in our current political climate where this feels particularly applicable? Can we think of some examples in our current time where things don't even have to be factually true, but because it resonates with the values of someone or some people, or it's relevant to their experiences, your experiences, in a way that is compelling? I would really love for us to have some dialogue around that. Can we think about some examples in this current political climate in which things that we know can be fact checked, that are factually inaccurate at worst, and ambiguous or dubious at best, suddenly become true for people because it aligns with what their values are, because it speaks to their experiences in a way that is compelling. Not sure about factually inaccurate, but the generalizing is extreme now. As a non American, I'll sometimes see headlines, both left and right, that are twisting the truth, but everyone's in the comments agreeing without reading the nuance in the article. So, what is it? What do we think? Let me back it up a little bit. Let's break it down. What do we think people are valuing right now? What do people value right now? What do we think people's values are right now? Like, what are folks in your communities, and these don't have to be folks that you are in community with. There's a difference. Validation and affirmation of being correct. I think it's really important for people to want to feel like they're right. I think that a lot of people's self-value, particularly in these times where we are seeing the where we are seeing the chasm widen in the disparities that people are experiencing. I think people very much are tied to being right as a currency. Mm, mm. Which I think speaks to a deeper need to be seen as good. That's where a lot of defensiveness comes from. A very wounded child desires to not be bad. Okay, we getting meta with it. We going psychological with it. Okay. And there's also something called confirmation bias. Yes, baby. Let's talk about the confirmation bias. They'll blindly accept anything because that's what they want to affirm and believe. But why do people want to affirm and believe these things? I think it's important for us to know if we are talking about engaging with people, even if it's just engaging with the people that we trust. Because some of us are like, look, I ain't trying to be no activist. I ain't trying to be no organizer. I ain't trying to go out here and talk to motherfuckers out in the street. Shit is sticky out here right now. That feels a little dangerous to me. Or I'm already trying to manage all of the shit that I got going on in my life, and going out here and doing this, I just don't have the spoons to. But these things will come up. And I think we do have a responsibility to engage the people in our lives around these things. And your engagement is only as good as your ability to successfully engage them. So if we hit people with facts that make them feel overwhelmed, that make them feel like bad people because they don't agree, or because they don't see it that way, or because they don't understand, or because they weren't aware, you'll get nowhere with them. So we've got to understand some of these whys. We have to have a curiosity. Do you feel like you can change everyone's mind? Hell no. That's not even my purpose. That's not my goal. That's not my goal at all. Sometimes folks can't touch a specific cause or problem because it'll mean having to consider being complicit, or it'll rock their understanding of their identity that their entire life is based on. Using your personal experience is the most important, and not hearing contradictions. Come on now. Come on now. Using your personal experience. I find cognitive dissonance to be a huge barrier. Dead ass. Yes. Let's keep going. Thank y'all for entertaining that. Thank y'all for musing on that. And I think we can keep thinking about it, because I know for me specifically, thinking quite broadly about, I'm 44 years old, y'all. I'm 44. I was born in the 80s, really came of real political consciousness, like being able to understand the world around me, maybe not having a language at 10 and 11 years old, but understanding that like politics was a thing, that the adults were arguing about some shit, right? Like being able to get that, there were forces in the world that affected the people around me. And then later, as I got a little bit older, affected me as well. And so I have seen, that's the great thing about aging, right? It's, first of all, aging is a mind fuck. We, at least in America, through an American lens, we really need to unpack our preoccupation with youth. Okay? We are hyper fixated on youth. And I know that that's really because it's what capitalism is trying to sell to us. Youth is fleeting. It's, you come in and out of youth very quickly. You spend more time being old than you do being young. And don't get me wrong. At 44, I'm still young, but I'm not 25. I have a consciousness now. Like I can point to things in the past. I am now at a place in my life where there are things that I know that I've experienced that people who are younger than me cannot reference. They do not have a point of reference from. They did not experience it. It has not made an imprint on their body and their psyche. So that means that we move through the world in some ways that are very different. And so I say that to say that I remember the rise of political correctness. It is very bizarre to get on the internet and see the reemergence of the R word. If y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm not going to say it on here because I'm not trying to get banned. But it starts with an R, it ends with a D. Retard ed. This word is coming back into vogue again. People are using it unapologetically. And they are doing so because it is a rejection of wokeness. People have started to value things that are crass. People are starting to value this idea that we need to be more resilient and that there's those of us who are actually more resilient and smarter and superior and better based. And coincidentally, when you try to figure out what the metrics are for that, it's usually rooted in gender and complexion and how folks have been racialized. But folks are valuing that because the pendulum of political correctness, of wokeness, of identity values has swung so far to the left that folks felt like they actually couldn't even question certain things. That certain conversations couldn't even be had. That they were being so over-policed by the woke snowflakes that there then becomes, interestingly, this value of returning to things that had previously been deemed as oppressive, as inequitable, as harmful. And once that becomes your value system, once that resonates with you, once that feels relevant to your experience, and I'm not saying that I believe that this is valid. We could have a deeper conversation around why some people feel like they're entitled to be able to say and do harmful things to other people. That is a conversation we should and could have, but we're not going to have it right now. I am just talking about on the face of it. That your experience says, I'm being so policed that I can't say certain words without being deemed a bad person, without being canceled, that I will actually now attach myself to the antithesis of all of those things. And so then when you have somebody like Emperor Cheeto who shows up and becomes essentially the poster child, the mouthpiece, the king of all of those things, of saying whatever you want, of just telling it like it is, of the outright rejection, the bold and audacious rejection of equity and wokeness. It doesn't matter if everything that he says is not true. It doesn't matter that when he's fact checked to his face, he'll just make up another lie right there. And it doesn't matter how obvious that it is. It doesn't matter how unsophisticated it is. It speaks to a value. And so people will attach themselves to it. The COVID-19 pandemic, and we've only got about like another half an hour or so. So we'll probably get through this page and not much else. And then I will go over the questions that I'm going to put up in the Patreon. And you can go sign up for the Patreon. You don't have to become a patron. You can just sign up and be part of the public, and you'll still get to see the questions. We'll go over those questions at the beginning of next week's club. We can also start conversation in the questions, like in the post. We can also continue. And I want for us to continue to have those conversations. This will be available for playback, and it will be embedded in the Patreon. So if you want to come back and reference it, you can. The COVID-19 pandemic imparts valuable lessons in this respect. In 2020, public health guidance around slowing the spread of COVID-19 was at its most stringent. Most of us marveled at the obliviousness of people who did not seem cognizant of how harmful their defiance of COVID safety protocols was. Many people have similarly been shocked by vaccine hesitancy in the United States. We have often seen people divided into moral categories over these matters. It would be easy, in fact, to dismiss everyone who acts against the collective good as selfish or bad. But would such characterizations help us alter the terrain? As organizers, we must always pose the question, why is this happening? Now, I said that before. Now, I said it, haven't have read this already and been able to sit in it. But in my notes, because I'll be taking notes right in the book. In my notes, I wrote, I struggle with this. I struggle with this. For me, it feels like coddling. For me, it's like abducting people off the street because they said something that you didn't agree with, and then trying to revoke their rights, their legal rights to inhabit this land, which let's acknowledge is stolen land, land built on genocide itself, seems crazy to me. People supporting, defending, and actually championing that, I don't care why they believe that. It's wrong. We shouldn't be doing it. It's not legal. So it's crazy to me that the folks who feel so tied to this idea of law and order all of a sudden are like, law and order except for when it applies to us. We get to make up the law and the order, and we can break the law and the order when it benefits us. I'm not really concerned with why it's happening. And so I'm still sitting with that. I'm still struggling with that. I'm wondering if that is coming up for anybody as we read this chapter. Because for me, as an organizer, at some point, my politic became that my time is not well spent trying to convince a motherfucker anything. Either you come into this work and we are working in community with one another to dismantle certain systems, or you are my enemy. You are a risk to my life and the life of people that I care about. I don't want to tell you a story to convince you to change hearts and minds. I'm not interested in the psychology of why you become such a hateful person, why you would support things that are outwardly and overtly hateful. I don't see a lot of use in that. So this, I got to be honest with y'all, as the facilitator, this chapter, this excerpt in this chapter is really stretching me. And I'm wondering if anybody else is having some similar opinions or not. I would love to hear if this is resonating with folks and why. I wish we could go back to the 2016, 2020 levels of wokeness. Hello, there's somebody at the door. Please answer it. Yes. In my view, asking why individually about people we view as bad now is the only way we can eventually one day societally integrate people who do bad deeds and actually abolish current policing systems. I can hold that. I can certainly hold that. I'm struggling with it, but I can hold it. Again, for all my scholarly hoes, we about to get into an attribution, y'all. Whenever I get ready to do a body roll, just know if I'm body rolling for y'all, we about to twerk for attribution. So get your notes ready, okay? So you can add this to the list of texts that you want to check out later. Stephen Taylor's 2019 book, The Psychology of Pandemics. Stephen Taylor's 2019 book, The Psychology of Pandemics, describes the range of individual responses to major health threats. First of all, the fact that there was a book in 2019, The Psychology of Pandemics, and then the next year there was an actual fucking pandemic is wild. Stephen Taylor's 2019 book, The Psychology of Pandemics, describes the range of individual responses to major health threats. Some people react to a public health crisis with what scientists call monitoring behavior. To cope with uncertainty, monitors seek all available information, such as reading as many new updates as possible or checking for new information on government websites. However, monitors with a low tolerance for uncertainty may eagerly search for answers in unreliable places. Is this sounding familiar to y'all at all? Which can lead to the embrace of hoaxes or conspiracy theories. Meanwhile, others are prone to what's known as blunting behavior, which involves a distraction from and minimizing of threatening information. Still, others exhibit what's known as unrealistic optimism bias, characterized by the belief that they are more likely than others to evade harm and experience positive outcomes. Research has shown that monitors are responsive to emotional appeals as well as detailed information about risk factors and harm reduction strategies, whereas blunters are likely to avoid such messaging. For them, simple, logical messaging is likely most effective. Understanding these different reactions is essential to effective messaging and highlights the importance of taking multiple approaches in our organizing. We need twerk for attribution on the t-shirt. I'll work on it. One activist who tackled the issue of vaccine hesitancy constructively is a young social worker in Seattle named Jenny Martinez Lorenzo. Martinez Lorenzo comes from a family of immigrants, and her work as a social worker primarily involves connecting immigrant families with financial resources. COVID-19 hit the communities Martinez Lorenzo works with especially hard. When she learned that vaccines would soon be available, she hoped the nonprofit she worked for would be a resource in terms of educating the community and perhaps even hosting a vaccine clinic. But she soon found her coworkers were hesitant to raise the matter. Everyone was too afraid of seeming pushy, Martinez Lorenzo told us. No one wanted to bring it up. Some of the nonprofit's employees had their own hesitations about vaccination, which made them even less eager to raise the subject with community members. Martinez Lorenzo pointed out that educational materials and information about the vaccine were not being made widely available in Spanish, which meant many community members were not getting the chance to decide for themselves if they thought the vaccine was worth taking. The local registration process for appointments was likewise fraught for non English speakers, and she hoped her workplace would be a resource in that regard as well, perhaps hosting its own vaccine clinic. Dissatisfied with her employer's response, Martinez Lorenzo began to gently raise the topic at a women's group that she had begun for community members the nonprofit served. She shared information after she got her own vaccination appointment and after her first dose. But Martinez Lorenzo knew that merely sharing some facts in her capacity as a social worker was unlikely to change anyone's minds, and that if she pushed for vaccination in those meetings, she might alienate people. I think there is a power dynamic between me coming in as a social worker of the group, she told us. Martinez Lorenzo knew some people would not want to question her in front of the group, so as to not be rude and that others might take offense if she pushed them. Like, I know better, and I'm telling them, you have to get it. From her experience as an activist, Martinez Lorenzo knew that the matter would come down to persistent, patient, and curious conversations and story sharing. She knew that people had anxieties about the vaccine, some of which were rooted in personal, historical, and systemic trauma. And she wanted to offer them a place to voice those anxieties beyond the internet, where hesitant people were largely being met with misinformation or with scorn for their perceived selfishness. She made phone calls and had one-on-one conversations with mothers from the group, asking what they thought of the information about the vaccine that she had shared. She also told the story of her own parents getting vaccinated and what it was like for them. Martinez Lorenzo took the same approach outside of work in her relationships and community. In recurring conversations that in most cases went on for months. Rather than speaking from a place of authority or lecturing people, Martinez Lorenzo explored the topic with people, searched out answers to any new questions that arose, and sharing her family stories of vaccination. By the time Martinez Lorenzo's employer agreed to arrange a Q&A session with Spanish-speaking public health experts, interest in the vaccine had risen among the families Martinez Lorenzo worked with. And by the time the organization was ready to host a vaccine clinic, many people were eager to sign up. Martinez Lorenzo told us in April 2021, I started doing these types of phone callbacks in January, and it's taken up until this past weekend where we got most of our families vaccinated at a clinic that we did. Martinez Lorenzo noted that even after people signed up, some would call her later and say, can you tell me again about the vaccine? Patience was key. Contrary to popular characterizations, the people Martinez Lorenzo helped to get vaccinated were not unthoughtful or selfish. They needed information and they needed to be heard and reassured repeatedly. But their participation in a larger action aimed at projecting large numbers of people was wholly obtainable. So why are people so hard to reach, particularly when the threats at hand seem so blatantly obvious? Human consciousness can be overwhelming, even in the absence of an existential threat. But when we add something like a pandemic or the climate crisis or other extreme threats to the mix, people cope in a spectrum of ways, some of which are helpful and some of which are not. We have seen some of the ugliness that fear and uncertainty can generate. As anti-mask and anti-vaccine movements have become increasingly widespread and aggressive. By the time such ideas are entrenched, it can be very hard to reach people, which is yet another reason why we cannot yield the terrain of crisis to reactionaries who are organizing avidly in these times. Leveraging fear gets great results for people who want to bring out the worst in others. So think about what y'all was saying about the internet. But it garners less returns for those who want to bring out the best. But Taylor writes, people can also react in positive and healthy ways amid crisis. While pandemics can result in antisocial behavior, he says affirmatives, supportive, pro-social behaviors are more common, where widespread sickness and debility evoke acts of mutual aid among members of a community in crisis. We saw many of these Supportive pro-social behaviors emerged early in the pandemic as hundreds of mutual aid projects sprung up around the country seemingly overnight. The Seattle area resource Big Door Brigade defines mutual aid as when people get together to meet each other's basic survival needs with a shared understanding that the systems we live under are not going to meet our needs and we can do it together right now. In spring 2020, as people around the country grappled with economic freefall and mass illness and death, many people identified needs within their communities and leveraged social media and other resources to create local response teams. We saw new and old formations organize themselves to deliver groceries and medicine for high-risk individuals who could not risk shopping in person. Many people with sewing machines mass-produced cloth masks, some which were sent to medical facilities as healthcare workers grapple with the devastating shortage of personal protective equipment. Some people made masks on their own as a solo effort, while others teamed up in formations like the Auntie Sewing Squad, created by performance artist Christina Wong. Within the Auntie Network, in 1 year, volunteers between the ages of 8 and 93 donated more than 300,000 masks to people in need. On Kelly's reservation, I do not know how to pronounce this. I'm going to try my best because I think that I owe some reverence to trying to pronounce this indigenous name. So, on Kelly's reservation, Maek Te Kuwa Ki He Kiwa Metai Mosak, Woodland Women's Group, a group of Menominee women who prior to the pandemic gathered weekly for crafting, cultural education, and mutual support, organized grocery deliveries for elders and others who could not safely run their own errands. To inspire constructive behavior like these, we must embrace storytelling that centers support and inspiration, not just fear. We spoke with Shayna McDavis Conway, the co-director of the Center for Story-Based Strategy, about how to build a different kind of political messaging. Story-based strategy, a participatory approach that links movement building with an analysis of narrative power. Position storytelling at the center of social change. McDavis Conway points to climate activism as an area that overwhelmingly relies upon fear-based communication, and she gestures towards a different path. We do need to tell stories that evoke emotion, she says. And fear is an emotion, but it is not the only emotion available to us. There are many other emotions we can tap into. How can we move or provoke people to take action around the climate crisis without emphasizing fear? We can use admiration, says McDavis Conway, like admiration for Indigenous activists who are fighting pipelines. We can tap into nostalgia for coastal cultures. They're impacted by rising sea levels. We can tap into love and sadness and excitement, outrage, even disgust. McDavis Conway notes that anyone who has a child who loves slimy creatures knows how disgust and fascination can inspire someone to spend hours on an activity. Ultimately, she says, when we ask people to process a fearful message that they are not prepared for, we risk losing them altogether. But when we tap into the diverse spectrum of human emotion, we have an opportunity to inspire people to view themselves as a part of a larger story and to make moral decisions about who they are in relation to other human beings. Eco-philosopher and educator Joanna Macy has come to a similar conclusion about the role of fear in activist messaging and the opportunities that emerge when we access a broader range of emotions. In 2017, she talked with environmental journalist Dar Jamail about how activism for the environment, for peace and justice have been hampered by this difficulty people are having in sustaining the gaze, which she once chalked up to apathy. Somebody in the chat mentioned apathy as part of cooperating with violence. Back then, when we were trying to scare people to pay attention, you don't know how bad it is with climate change. You don't know how many nuclear warheads are on high alert. Get roused. And it wasn't working. People thought the public was apathetic. But I realized it was not that people didn't care or didn't know, but that people were afraid to suffer. I want to read that again. People thought the public was apathetic and it wasn't working. But people thought the public was apathetic. But I realized it was not that people didn't care or didn't know, but that people were afraid to suffer. It was the refusal or the incapacity to suffer. So this has been a lot of my work to help people open to and become enamored of the idea that they'd really like to see what was going on, and to open the eyes and open the heart to discover again and again universally in the work that acceptance of that discomfort and pain actually reflected the depths of your caring and commitment to life. That is some powerful shit, y'all. I'm gonna read it one more time because I want y'all to sit in that. Because we be afraid of pain, especially those of us who have suffered. Those of us who are in here probably know deep suffering. Not like, oh, I didn't get something I wanted. I didn't get the job. I'm talking about deep suffering. I'm talking about losing family members to incarceration. I'm talking about being survivors of domestic violence or knowing people who have fallen victim and did not survive domestic violence. I'm talking about those of us who have suffered through gun violence, who live in communities where we are not being able to have a quality of life that meets our basic needs. We suffer. We know pain. On a real level, in our wombs, we know pain. So I want us to sit in this again as people who know pain, as people who have suffered. Back then, when we were trying to scare people to pay attention, you don't know how bad it is with climate change. You don't know how many nuclear warheads are on high alert. Get roused. And it wasn't working. People thought the public was apathetic, but I realized it was not that people didn't care or didn't know, but that people were afraid to suffer. It was the refusal or the incapacity to suffer. So this has been a lot of my work to help people open to and become enamored of the idea that they'd really like to see what was going on, and to open the eyes and open the heart to discover again and again universally in the work that acceptance of that discomfort and pain actually reflected the depths of your caring and commitment to life. Can you think about how you turn pain on its head when you say that actually I want to know what's going on? And that my embracing how uncomfortable this feels in my body and in my heart in this moment is actually a reflection that I am a good and empathetic person, that I am committed to a life of justice and equity. And only through the acceptance of that pain, only through the acceptance of that discomfort, only through reconciling with the fact that I might actually be volunteering to suffer, do I get to the end of that. Mm, mm, mm. That is from eco-philosopher and educator Joanna Macy, Macy. So again, if you a scholarship hoe, if you's a hoe for a scholarship, if you been doing something strange for some change, for some scholarship change, that was a note right there. Eco-philosopher and educator Joanna Macy. This is the last paragraph of this excerpt. Then I will quickly go over what the questions, the homework will be that will be posted on the Patreon tomorrow, not today, because I'm getting ready to leave. I'm tired. I'm going to have a joint. I'm going to lay down and I'm going to eat the rest of my Spanish food. Okay? So I'll post it tomorrow before I get up and go clean 100 pounds of chicken shit out of the coop and buy a chicken plucker. All right. What we offer as organizers is not simply alarming information, nor is it the guarantee of success in a particular campaign. We must offer people a vision of how things could be and the opportunity to connect with people, projects, and movements that can bring this vision to fruition. That is the organizer's unique gift, an invitation to participate in a transformation worth experiencing and fighting for. Organizing welcomes people into a different way of thinking and living in relation to one another and allows people to cultivate and dwell in hope collectively. Mm, y'all, y'all. Mm, mm. Them little 8 pages, them little 10 pages, because I was 10 pages. Yeah. Page 10 to 30. I mean, 20 to 30. Stretch me, child. Stretched me out. Stretched me out. Whew. All right, real quick. Let's look at some questions, okay, from the workbook. I'm going to tweak some of these. I'm going to put these up tomorrow. Okay. So, some of the things that I might be asking y'all to think about, to discuss in the chat on the Patreon, that we will briefly go over in our next book club meeting is Kelly and Mariam state facts are not enough to mobilize people to action. Does this ring true to you? What are the circumstances that make it more likely that facts will be useful in moving people to action? Think about your own experiences. Have there been times in your life when powerful facts help move you to action? So there's some self-reflection there. Building on Ruth Wilson Gilmore's story about her visit to Berkeley High School, think about the issues you are currently organizing. And we don't have to use the word organizing. I usually change it. Like, think about the issues that you are currently just thinking about in your own life, that are coming up in conversation in your life, that are important to you. What is a related story you want to lift up? One that will be an invitation and not merely an alarm. What do you want to lift up? And not by being a doom appropriator, but lift up through an invitation, through openness. Learning from Shannon McDavis Conway, what emotions beside fear might you tap into as you work to invite others to join your efforts? Make a list or chart of at least 2 emotions and explain why and how they might act as invitations to action. So those are some things, right? And it's really about self-reflection. I think that this particular excerpt really challenged us in regards to how we look at things. Because for many of us, yes, we go to the fear, we go to the big scary. But what does it look like to pivot that? What ways do we have to reimagine our language, how we use that language, in what ways we use that language, and possibly when we use that language? It's an exercise. It's an exercise that's meant to stretch us, very much like that excerpt. So we are at our time. I've been real good about time lately. I'm proud of myself. Are there any things that we want to say to each other in these moments? Is there a reflection that we want to have? I see everybody skedaddled. There's only 2 of y'all left on here. 3. So this is an invitation that I'm going to ask. I got this from another group that I'm in. The facilitator uses this thing called putting together pearls. And so it's how we conclude our session. And what we're going to do is that I am going to ask you to think of a word that you're feeling in this moment, a phrase or an excerpt that came up in what we read, and you're going to write it in the chat. And then we're going to string that together as a poem or as a thought, as a pearl. Don't do it now. Don't do it now. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. It's 9:02. At 9:04, I'm going to count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then all at the same time, we're going to put that word, that quote, that phrase in the chat, and that will become our poem for this meeting today. And then I will repost it on Patreon. There's only 3 of us in here now. It's me and 2 other people. So if you actually want to do maybe 2 words or 2 quotes or something like that, and you don't have to think about what anybody else is saying. We're just stringing it together and we see what happens. Okay? Let's string together our pearls. It's 9:02, 9:04. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. If you have the book, you may want to look back at the book, find a word or something that jumped out at you or a part of a quote, and we're going to put it in the chat. 1 minute. It's 9:03. At 9:04, we're going to put it in there. One word, one quote, a feeling that you're having, a sensation that's coming up in your body. Yes, of course you can paraphrase, but just don't put it in there yet. Don't put it in there yet. We're going to all press return at the same time. Okay? Okay. 10 more seconds. Do you have your word? Do you have your quote? Do you have your paraphrase? Do you have your sensation? Do you have your feeling? In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Put it in the chat. Okay, so here is our poem. Our poem, as strung together as pearls, are inspired and challenged, invitation to evolve. Besides death or failure is psychological. Relief, we are afraid to suffer. So I'm getting ready to write that down right now. Oh, we got more. Okay, so let me read it all together now. Inspired and challenged, invitation to evolve. Besides death or failure is psychological. Relief, we are afraid to suffer. Our belief is not through facts, but we connect with our value or relevant to our experience that is compelling. We just wrote a poem, y'all. Look at that. Yeah, our string of pearls. Let me get I'm going to do a little screenshot. Yes, it does sound really good together. When someone did this in a class that I'm taking, a writing class that I take every Sunday, I was like, ooh, sis, thank you. We'll be borrowing. So shout out to Isabella, who gave me this. And this is how we're going to close all of our meetings now. We're going to write a poem together. All right, so I'm going to take a screenshot. I just took the screenshot. I'm going to save the screenshot. And I will put our string of pearls, our poem, which is going to be called People's Poem Number 3. And I'm going to put it in there. Y'all, thank you so much. Let me put in the Patreon, just so y'all know what it is. Give me 1 second so you can become patrons over there. I don't remember my own Patreon link. That's nuts. But go and sign up, become a Patreon. If you have the ability to do so, consider donating to the work that I'm doing at the Black Feminist Project. If you don't have the means or the desire to become a Patreon right now, that is okay. You can just sign up as like one of the members on the Patreon. And so you'll still see all of the reposted stuff for the People's Book Club. Those things I'm not putting behind a paywall. I just don't. My own politic does not allow me to do that. If you feel like the work that I'm doing this, facilitating this is important and valuable, and you have the ability to monetarily support, great. But the best way that you can support is by telling the people in your network how fabulous this was. The fact that on a Tuesday night for an hour and 37 minutes, an hour and a half, you sat here and took a virtual book club and encouraged them to come. That would be great. I really want to grow this space. I am not going to shy away from the fact that that is a goal, that is a desire, that it would be lovely if every Tuesday we had 50 to 100 people exchanging ideas, being a container for one another, having a place where we're not punching down, where there is nuance, where we are inviting people to think critically. And Melissa is in Thailand, y'all. It is 6 a.m. and it's Wednesday there. And Sis is here with us. So here's the Patreon. And you can go and join so that you get the questions and you get the repost. And I will see you guys next Monday. I'm going to see y'all next Monday at 7:30. Okay. And hopefully you will bring a friend. Okay. So that's the Patreon there. I'm going to repost this and embed it on the Patreon. So if people want to reference it, if you want to share it with folks, you can do that. Sign up, become a patron. If that works for you, no shame, no shade if it doesn't. Buettes and booze. I'm like, this has been stuff has been hard. I just want to tell y'all that. Stuff has been hard for me. I don't have enough. Okay? Like, I mean, I have enough, but I don't have enough. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough capacity. And I am juggling lots of different balls. This as satisfying for me in this moment as it might be for any of you that are on this. And so I love you too, babe. It's my sister. Love you so much. Thank y'all for hanging out with me. Thank y'all for being a container for me. I want y'all to know how much this has touched me to have y'all stick in there, that we had a full class of like 5 people. So until next time, Buettes and Booze, I love you. Ciao.